Ursula Jones is nothing short of a musical icon, according to the Royal Philharmonic Society, who made her an honorary member last year at the age of 92. She's devoted her life to music and has long championed the work of young performers. She gave Daniel Barenboim his first break as a conductor in London when he was just 23. Ursula was born in Lucerne in 1932, where her father was one of the founders of the Lucerne Festival. So famous musicians, including the likes of Richard Strauss, were never far away. She came to London in 1954 and worked as a secretary for the Philharmonia Orchestra, moving on to co-found the English Chamber Orchestra in 1960. She married the eminent trumpet player Philip Jones and later managed his brass ensemble. Music isn't her only fascination. She completed a doctorate in archaeology at the age of 60, and in 2021 she cycled 100 kilometres to raise money for the charity Brass for Africa. How did you come to meet Philip Jones?
Yeah, that was quite extraordinary. In 1955, in the summer, we had Guido Cantelli conducting 2 performances of the Verdi Requiem. That was sort of the highlight of the programme. And I had to get 10 trumpets, and we only had 3 trumpets in the orchestra. So my boss gave me a list, and there was Philip Jones, and I rang him, and he said he had something else, but he would try and make himself free. And he rang me the next day, and he said, I'm terribly sorry, I can't do this, because I have an important cricket match. And for me, cricket was croquet. I didn't know the difference between cricket and croquet. And I thought, this must be a very strange fellow to turn down 2 Verdi Requiems to play croquet on the grass. Anyway, but I did engage Philip again sometime, and then he engaged me, and that was that.
Well, how did your parents feel about your going out with him?
They were absolutely shocked. An Englishman, and on top of that, a trumpet player. Just imagine. They asked me immediately to come home.
And of course, brass players don't have a very good reputation. Philip was one of the most urbane and charming and well-behaved people. He was always very finely chiselled.
He was tall but very thin, and I always remembered because when we first met, he was only about 55 kilos and I was more than that. And I tried to get at least to his weight, and somebody said, don't eat anything solid before lunchtime, which I've done for 60, 70 years now.
You lived together, didn't you, first, which is rather unusual in those days. You must have had to fool your parents.
That was absolutely terrible, you know. One of my violinists in the Philharmonia Orchestra, Jessie Hinchley, offered me an alibi address. And whenever my parents came, I moved quickly into my alibi address.
Very naughty.
And then we decided to get married. Father didn't come, but mother did come. That was in 1956, on the 1st of August, which is Swiss National Day. I thought then I would never forget.
Apart from his expertise on the trumpet, Philip also loved the alphorn, didn't he?
Yes, and I remember we were on a skiing holiday quite early in our marriage, and we went to a mountain restaurant, and there was an alphorn player. And Philip said, oh, you know, I'd love to try it. And so I went to ask this chap, I didn't say he was a professional trumpet player, whether he could have a little blow. And the restaurant was absolutely full. And so Philip went on this alphorn and played, of course, much better than the alphorn. He was furious, that alphorn player, and so we went out as quickly as possible. And when we built our little chalet in the mountains in Switzerland, he said, I must have an alphorn. And then I had a little Schweizerörgeli. That's this very small accordion. and we played duos on it, you know. And then he acquired several alphorns, actually. Also a buchel, which is a wound round out. It looks a little bit like a trombone, you know, but also wood. He loved playing it, and he used to have to play in the mountains. I wouldn't make dinner before he played something really nice. But with that smaller instrument, he was very often invited by the shepherds in our mountain area. When they had feasts, he would go and play there for them.
Wonderful. Philip went on to found the Philip Jones Brass Ensemble, which really completely changed the repertoire for brass instruments in this country. And funnily enough, I don't know whether any of our more eagle-eared listeners noticed that we used a slightly different version of the music from Chaucer, which begins the programme, which I wrote for Philip and Radio 3 many years ago, because he played on that recording. He was the first person to play it.
Yes, I remember that very well. That was quite exciting for him, to do that. Well, when I knew him first, the ensemble existed, but it played perhaps 2 or 3 times a year, and mostly with choirs or with somebody else. And wherever we went abroad with the English Chamber Orchestra, I always said to the organisers that my husband had a brass ensemble. Chamber music on brass was just not really regarded very highly. Anyway, one day, one of the organisers in Switzerland rang me and said, "You said your husband had a brass ensemble. How large is it?" And I said, "It's a quintet." And he said, "Could he come with more?" And usually people said, "Could he come with less?" so that they could pay less. So that's when Philip thought of enlarging it to 10, 4 trumpets, 4 trombones, horn and tuba. And that really established sort of Philip Jones formation, which is used nowadays quite a lot.
And one of the pieces that emerged through the ensemble was a version of the Mussorgsky Pictures at an Exhibition. Mussorgsky was inspired by the idea of somebody going round an exhibition and looking at different pictures.
Oh, well, that was Elgar Howarth. He arranged it for 16 brass players and 2 percussion. They recorded it for Decca, and Philip came home and said, we won't be able to do that in public because it's so difficult. Within about a year or so, they started doing it at concerts. They even did it at the proms, abroad on festivals, and it became quite something. And I think the Times critic thought that it was better than Ravel's orchestration.
Well, that's
more interesting, yes.
Well, it's rather wonderful that we can pay tribute to Elgar Howarth, who died very recently. Which movements would you like to listen to?
I think Samuel Goldberg and the duet of the 2 Jews is very interesting.
And Promenade 5 and the weekly
and
market.
And then the market of Limoges, of course, that is wonderful. I mean, that's marvellously thought out by Elgar Howarth to picture it like that.
Absolutely wonderful writing for brass. Those 3 movements from Mussorgsky's Pictures at an Exhibition, played by the Philip Jones Brass Ensemble and conducted by the man who arranged them, the late Elgar Howarth. The next piece is by the fine Polish composer and conductor Witold Lutosławski, and I think that there's a personal connection with your family here.
My father asked me when I was 49, what would you like for your 50th birthday? And I said, it would be lovely to have a composition by Lutosławski for Philip's ensemble. So my father, of course, being Swiss, he said, how much? Anyway, it was arranged. Lutosławski said he was very pleased to do something. And then political trouble started in Poland and we didn't hear anything anymore. And Philip, by sheer chance, was offered a date in Lucerne either the day before or the day after my 50th birthday. And so we thought we would have the premiere there and also a party and so on. Anyway, we didn't hear any more. And then about 2 weeks before the date, a parcel arrived in a Swedish embassy addressed to Philip, and it was Lutosławski's piece. And it was only a very short piece called Mini Overture. But there it was, and Philip said, oh yes, we must do it.
I think, sadly, your father didn't hear it, did he?
No, in May before he died, suddenly. And that's also quite a funny story, because in the Wikipedia it said that I died and I never heard it. And nowadays brass ensembles know this story, and they often ask me to talk to the audiences and tell them this story and say, well, here I am, I'm still here.
Oh, they had great fun with that, didn't they?
Well, it's still, I think, one of the best modern pieces, and it's now played by lots of brass ensembles. Even from memory they played, which I'm very impressed, of course.
Lutosławski's Mini Overture, performed by the Philip Jones Brass Ensemble. You're still involved in championing Philip's work, and you sponsor a trumpet place on the National Youth Orchestra. Has that kept you pretty busy and sort of interested in the world of music?
Yes, I just can't give it up, really. I mean, well, my mission really is to help young brass players. And I have now every 3 years an international competition for brass quintets. I also have every 2 years a concert in St John Smith Square with the best brass ensembles of 8 major colleges in England, Wales and Scotland. My most recent thing is a tuba player who won the gold medal in Trinity Laban last year against all the string players, pianists, singers and so on, called Louis Chin. Interestingly, very soon after he won the gold medal, I met the great-grandson of Sibelius in Glyndebourne, who is called Lauri Porra. And he's a jazz double bass player, actually. But he also composes, and in conversation it came out that he had composed a tuba concerto. So I mentioned this to Trinity, and it was actually premiered in December, just before Christmas.
Well, we can hear.
Lauri Porra came.
Well, we have an excerpt from the UK premiere of the tuba concerto, so let's hear it. An excerpt from the UK premiere of the Tuba Concerto by Lauri Pora, performed by Lewis Chin with Trinity Laban Symphonic Strings at Blackheath Halls in December last year, conducted by Alan Duguid. Ursula, you're never one for sitting still. In 2021, you cycled 100 kilometres to raise money for Brass for Africa. Why are you so passionate about the work that they do that you were prepared to take to your bicycle?
You know, my life is really, in memory of Philip, is brass, helping brass. And I did this fundraising specifically to help women brass players. Brass for Africa doesn't only teach them, but they also teach them to read and write and so on, because many have never been to school. And we have over 1,000 young players every year starting playing in Uganda, Rwanda and Liberia. And I had a group of them about 2 or 3 years ago in Switzerland, and I even learned to play the Alp horn.
And until quite recently, you used to go paragliding.
Yes, I'm afraid I've just cancelled it for the first time on my birthday now, because I think I'm really getting too old. Yes.
I'm not sure that you're ever too old to do anything. We're going to end with another great tuba player, John Fletcher, who played with your husband, Philip Jones. What have you chosen?
Oh, well, I just have to say about John Fletcher, he was really the first tuba player to make the instrument a musical instrument. Before it was just an instrument. I mean, he was absolutely fantastic. And one day on one of the tours, I was sitting next to Elgar Howarth on the aeroplane. Elgar didn't really like flying, and to sort of just make a little bit of entertainment, I started singing him Swiss tunes, and he liked them and wrote them down and then arranged them for the brass ensemble, quite a few of them. And there is one particular one which is called the cuckoo. It has got the cuckoo which Fletcher, the tuba player, played through his hands, you know, the cuckoo. He even at one stage, I remember, I think it was in Richmond concert, where he climbed on a tree and the cuckoo came from the tree. And what is even more marvellous is that Elgar Howarth, who was dying, and I went to visit him with his son, I thought, I'll take this record with me and play the cuckoo. And he actually opened his eyes and smiled a little bit. And his son says that's the last time he opened his eyes and smiled. So that was on the cuckoo.
Well, that's a wonderful note to finish on. Ursula Jones, thank you very much indeed, as we hear The Cuckoo, written by Elgar Howarth and performed by John Fletcher and Philip Jones.
Don't mention it. It was a great pleasure to be with you.
The Cuckoo, written by the late Elgar Howarth, who played there with John Fletcher and Philip Jones. And it was the final choice of my guest on Private Passions today, the co-founder of the English Chamber Orchestra and philanthropist, Ursula Jones, OBE.